You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
New Don Lemon court filing alleges federal officer lied to the judge based on an article by Sarah K. Burris. When the government needs a lie to arrest the truth, a court filing exposes the setup. Dom Lennon's filing says a DHS-ICE agent swore to claims that were false, including that Lemon and other journalists joined chanting during a protest at a Minnesota church. The Justice Department is trying to hold reporters inside a criminal case built around their presence at a church where an ICE-linked operation was underway. Judge Douglas Minko has now ordered the government to turn over the grand jury material so the defense can test whether the same false account was used to secure the indictment. The real power is not on the sidewalk. The people with power here are not the journalists, not the protesters, and not the churchgoers trying to move through a police-state spectacle. The power sits with DHS, ICE, and the Justice Department, the agencies that decide who gets targeted, what gets sworn out, and whether a shaky allegation gets dressed up as federal truth. That matters because the story is not about confusion. It is about institutional choice. If the filing is accurate, officers and prosecutors did not stumble into a misunderstanding. They pushed a version of events that turned reporters into defendants and made a church protest look like a criminal conspiracy. The affidavit is the weapon. This is how authoritarian bureaucracy works in daylight. First comes the claim in a sworn filing. Then comes the legal machinery that gives the claim the appearance of inevitability. Then comes the public story. The government says this is just procedure, just a mistake, just a miscommunication. That language is camouflage. The stake is what agencies say when they want the benefit of the doubt without the burden of honesty. If the same false account was presented to the grand jury, then the lie was not incidental. It was the mechanism. Grand jury secrecy is doing the government's work. The government depends on grand jury secrecy because secrecy protects state power from scrutiny. Judge Minko's order to turn over the testimony and evidence is notable precisely because it interrupts that ritual of concealment. The mention of the Chicago Broadview case makes the patent harder to dismiss. There, the Justice Department was found to have misled grand jurors, and jurors who might not deliver the desired indictment were dismissed. That is not a clerical error. That is prosecutorial management of an outcome. The target is journalism, not disorder. The most revealing detail is who got swept into the case: journalists filming at a church. The state wants to blur the line between reporting and protest because that blur gives it more room to intimidate both. Once cameras become agitators, the government can claim it is policing conduct when it is really punishing witness. That is the political function of these charges. They are not only about this church, this protest, or this affidavit. They are about making observation itself feel risky. ICE is the problem, not a paperwork issue. If ICE is involved, the instinct should not be to ask for kinder management or better training. ICE is the engine of the cruelty here. It relies on raids, fear, and the legal manufacture of disorder to justify its own existence. A system built to terrorize immigrants will also lie about journalists, if that is what protects the operation. The answer is not oversight of a structurally abusive agency. The answer is abolition. What this case actually shows, the larger pattern is plain. Executive agencies create a story, prosecutors launder it through legal process, and then the state asks courts to treat the result as ordinary. When that works, the lie becomes precedent. When it fails, officials call it a misunderstanding and move on. That is the real scandal. Not that the government may have slipped, that it appears willing to weaponize false sworn statements, secrecy, and selective prosecution to criminalize people who documented its conduct in public. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to AlterNet for today's article with the automated voice of LJ. Thanks for listening.